Thanks for being patient with me. So I only have so much battery life, and I only have so much time I can pretend and pose like I'm a farmer.
Hi, you got the tractor. Yeah, that's
Oh
great.
yeah. There's a lot of lies going on right now in my life, right in this picture. So, namaste.
I'm about to put down some tarot.
The coffee cherries are starting to turn, and this is the coffee. Actually, it's pretty amazing.
Oh,
hmm
sweet.
Nonetheless, I'm really excited. I got through a whole business mastery thing, and I've been working with some like dream people just as mentors, and I'm I'm doing all the 2.0. So the intro to the new the journaling work is now under a new business, but it will still be in the same site called 636 Journaling. So the 636 intro will be up in probably a week. And I just put up some new stretching, flexibility, and strengthening courses and all the bear crawl stuff. So Scott, you know this. When it comes to like bear crawling and animal walking stuff, I'm your guy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can go all day like that.
It's
And
the best thing. It feels so good.
yeah, and
Yeah.
also you guys, I will be in the Bay Area in October. We're doing our Qigong workshops, and I'm trying to do some other workshops out there. But get on y'all throw me the email, go on the website, because this is probably the most jam-packed trip back that I've ever done. And everyone knows that when I'm back, it's a lot. So
It's hit the
do
ground
that.
running.
Yeah. But really, 15-minute calls have been killing it. Thank you guys. Go and watch all the new videos on the homepage. I'm kind of explaining what the whole Yama system is all about, and there's a lot of stuff on there like how to get off autopilot. I'm realizing that I only want to sell a few things. Everything else is just I can give it away. It's an endless cup. And it's just like with music or a language, we can teach you all day, but if you're not out there having conversations, you're not learning it anyway. So I can't give away skill, but I can give you paths to it, and I hope you want to work with me. And other than that, what moon is it?
I was just gonna say, I've just been really appreciating the shot. I really like the background. It's like it's so, like a lot of shots, where you're either like traveling, you're in a like the spare
hmm
bedroom or something like that. But this one is just like it's just got like a super like hominess to it, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, I used to go for the whole Jenny from the Block thing, like I'm just like you, but now I'm just
Right.
like going, I
No.
feel like the energy that we're missing these days is the John Cougar energy. And so
Yeah, I
I'm
could see
bringing,
that. Yeah.
and just like John Cougar, he wasn't a farmer.
Right.
He didn't know how to drive any of this stuff.
No. Someone else was doing that for him, but he wore the
Yeah,
jeans.
yeah. He wore the jeans,
Yeah.
and I'm the difference between he and I is while he's sucking on a chili dog outside of Tasty
Yeah, he's
Freeze,
done.
I,
Yeah.
I will be I will be just kind of drinking maybe a kombucha or something like,
Right.
more or less at a hippie store. But other
Right.
than that, we're pretty much same. Yeah.
Yeah, so the where we are is that we're ending the first moon of autumn. And
Okay.
that first moon of autumn has been a monkey moon, and
Okay.
it's particularly a water monkey moon. So we can get
Hmm.
to the details of the water aspect, but that's kind of after the fact. We're going into another water moon, and it's the second moon of autumn, and it's the rooster moon.
Okay.
So if I had to give a quick summary, because in the cosmology, the feng shui, it's autumn is the metal element. It's the metal of the five elements: water, wood, fire, earth, and metal.
Hmm.
Right? Metal is the element of the autumn. Right? So
Okay.
and it's been a yang metal, which is the monkey moon, and that's associated with the pretense of our imagination, that we can imagine that we're going to keep going and keep pushing, as we talked about last moon.
Hmm.
And now going into the yin metal aspect of the rooster, this is a perpetual grinding away of that pretense.
Hmm.
Like, the light is dimming, right? Things are slowing down quite naturally, completely on their own.
Hmm.
Yin is more pronounced. Is much more, will be in this particular moon, much more pronounced of an influence than it was last moon. It was much more subtle. This time, there's a subtlety to it for sure, but it's going to become more pronounced. In this moon, we get the equinox. So that's when yin and yang have an agreement. They come to an accord. So we're on our way to that, which will be right around shortly after the full moon.
Hmm.
So at this point, basically, this whole notion of pulling inward, which is what the encouragement was last moon, continues. And that pulling inward, basically could say now the real work actually begins because we have to make sense of things. We have to bring clarity, sort things out. It's a kind of it's in a time of evaluation, like real,
Okay.
real strong levels of evaluation. Um, so so on a chi kind of pattern, there's been a damp heat condition that starts to get smoothed out by the cooling and drying aspects of the metal element. So I wrote today, like the eighth moon is going to bring you a mixture of a sublime carrot, the kind of welcoming aspect, and a
Hmm.
clarifying stick, right? So you get knocked over, like I can't go that far, you can't do that anymore. So there's going to be a little bit an edgier sense of limits and boundaries. Like in medieval China, this is when they would execute all the criminals because this is the time for everything to be cleared out. You got to balance the ledger. You got to sweep out all the dust and grime. This is a great time for fall house cleaning. Getting rid of all the excess, like simplifying, for instance.
Hmm.
There's a lot of dealing with complexities, but this idea of gathering inward now starts to become like a clarification process.
No, I don't do a lot of seasonal changing, but I always do the fall one because I think for
Yeah,
me the summer to the fall thing is that's what it is.
it's
It's
incredibly
put
important.
fall is when the leaves fall off and we
Yeah,
start realizing that we got to start preparing for winter. So it's that
yep,
editing process and making
yep,
sure. Okay, so you got a lot of tomatoes. These are the ones that's left. Everything else
yep,
is going to die if you unless
yep.
you preserve it. And
Yeah, the Chinese tradition was very clear since the Middle Ages, and Ming, talked about this quite a lot. Is it like going from yin, like peak yin or saturated yin of winter into spring is not so
mm,
dangerous, right? There's some clumsiness involved in that, but there's actually, yin automatically gives way, right?
mm,
To nurture and uh, to nurture growth and expansion, which is
mm,
what yang is representing. But when it comes to the reverse, going from weak to strong is much easier than going from strong to weak, right? So
mm,
there's more danger associated and more danger associated with in disease associated going from strong to weak. Because like
yeah,
you're sort of programmed to keep moving, like
yeah.
by the strength of summer. So to deprogram that and to slide back, that's the reason why that first moon of autumn has so much pretense attached to it, because it's like you can imagine you can keep doing things, but you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Now in the eighth moon is like, yeah, you can't do it. Like
Hmm.
it's ending. It's actually, the doors are closing, the lights are, like everything's kind of shutting down, and it should be clear that you need to make changes. You need to scale back pretty succinctly, like and with clarity. That's so it gets very there's a lot of poetry and romance around the eighth moon in the Chinese tradition because there's a lot of subtlety that comes from it. It's basically the return of the moon. So
Mm.
there's a whole festival, the Moon Festival, that's associated and giving out moon cakes and things like that. It's like this great big celebration of the return of yin. Because, and
Mm.
we've survived, summer is like a big time of risks and potential dangers. Like there's a lot going on. Um, and if we made it through that experience, now is the time to kind of relax and celebrate and reseed our inspiration.
Oh,
So we're not really trying to accomplish things anymore. We're trying to appreciate things. And this is where the editing bit comes in. It's not just like, oh, I can't do that anymore. Like, let's really distill and cultivate the things we have achieved. Let's
yeah.
actually really appreciate those things and like let's be re-inspired by those things. So autumn is a really tremendously active time, but it's very internal.
One of the hardest things to get across to people in the longevity work is, okay, it's the hustle energy. So
Yeah,
I
it's
it took
accumulate. Yeah,
yeah, and it's like we're a lot of us are still hustling like we were in college or we were right out of college, and now we don't need to, or a lot of us are still trying to uh, perform on the level that we were in college.
yeah,
25
mm,
year old, we think we're gunning, but
right,
now you're 45, and
right, right,
it's like, no, you actually don't need to do that. And if you're trying to get your old body back, or you can't. The idea is appreciate what you had, and now
right,
appreciate the fact that you can be more efficient, or you can actually
right,
be greater. Like now you have old man
right,
strength, or now you have
right,
grace, or now you have confidence,
right.
actualization. There's a ton of other things you can cultivate.
And this is a
Um,
refinement quality. I mean, the
yeah.
rooster in of the 12 animals on the 12 branches, assigned to every moon, the eighth moon, the
Mhm.
rooster is often associated with intelligence. And
Okay.
intelligence here is not like omnipotence, right? Because that's what we think of it when we think of intelligence. Oh, he knows everything.
Mm.
The intelligence of the rooster is actually discernment, right?
Yep.
To be able to discern the things and to perfect and purify. And
Mhm.
so there's an alchemy that's associated with that, but
Mm.
it's very, very much, and this is where it gets a little philosophical because it's very associated with this notion of being and doing. And that
Mhm.
this, in the Taoist tradition, you go from being to doing, right?
Mhm.
Very quickly because of your embodiment. And there's a lot of practices like Neidan or meditation practices that take you back from doing to being, right?
Mhm.
To really try to shorten the distance between those two things. And there's a lot of really beautiful meditations that are available in the eighth moon with regards to this process. So the
Mhm.
alchemy that we're talking about, the purification that we're talking about, is that the manifestation of the things that you have done are actually this kind of when you do the work of refinement, when you do the work of like the self cultivation and appreciating the things that you've done, they actually then become, in this kind of contemplative way, a reflection of your current being.
Mhm.
And this is where the appreciation of yin comes in, right? That I actually am, this sort of manifestation. My outward manifestation in the world is actually a reflection of what I am, like,
Mhm.
and these are obviously saying this out loud and to a Western audience is like, huh? Like
Yeah.
it's not really but this is the reason why the eighth moon is so rich, in the cosmology of the Tongshu, is because you are really trying to sort out going into winter now, what are you going to carry forward? What are you going to carry with you? Because you can't take it
Mhm.
all, right? That's the
Yeah.
assumption. So you have to, the gathering inward and then clarifying is sort of recognizing what we want to carry forward into the winter, and then maybe what we put aside for the following spring. So this
Mhm.
is a very the eighth moon is an incredibly dynamic time because we're both broadcasting and projecting forward and then also dealing with what we have now. And all of this is a reflection of our values, our principles, our priorities, things that we can actually make an argument for. right? That's the whole
Hmm.
point of a rooster is I can articulate to you why I do the things I do.
Hmm.
And this is a very important moment, right, in the year because we've done all this accomplishment. Now we're going into a place where we don't have a lot of movement available. What are we going to tell her? So what's the story? How do we justify what we've done? And how do we carry it forward? Or if we can't, how do we recycle it, compost it, get rid of it,
Hmm.
so that we don't have that burden going into the winter. So this is
Hmm.
very deeply, should be a deeply self-reflective time. It's time to recall our values, because we've done all this experimentation and exercise, and now we're returning and remembering and recalling our inspiration, our
Hmm.
imagination. And so what values that we exercise, how did they do?
Yeah.
Did we learn anything? But the whole point is that I can quantify like how I did. I should be able to quantify how this is what happened and this is what I got out of it. And these are the
Hmm.
resources I used. Like the rooster's not shy about material measurement. This is
Hmm.
a harvest time. So I need to calculate. I need to balance the ledger of the effort that I put out and what I got back from it. Like we shouldn't be shy about that.
It's
Is
funny
the
because the mentors that I had, like I just spent over a week just in it, and it was all about metrics. Because as an
Yeah,
artist, I'm not concerned about that,
sure. Yeah,
and as a holistic practitioner, but one of the things that I learned was holistic has changed, right? And to say actually say thanks and appreciate the things that we can measure now, right? And there's that thing that in business, what can be measured can be managed. And I've always went through, it's like, but it's different in the body and it's different in holistic practices. However, there are pieces of it that you can measure, and therefore how to not
right.
run from those and how to be able
Yeah,
to use those in order to, all right, so if this is happening, then maybe I can change this, like if
right.
then, and
Right.
to learn how to use those metrics to my advantage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
to not
mean,
be
it's
afraid of
it's
them.
it's not, I mean, the risks here are, profound because we're such a
Mm,
materialistic culture. So
mm,
we want to quantify everything and make it
yeah.
commercial, and commodify things. That's not
Yeah.
what we're really, I mean, we can go into that place, but that's a kind of abstraction.
Yeah.
We think
Yeah.
it's true, but it's actually a kind of abstraction, only one kind of abstraction.
Well, okay.
So
So
there's a lots of
it,
kinds of abstractions that are available.
I mean, imagine, like let's use racing cars, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Um, you're racing a car and they're refining things down to the hundredth of a
Oh,
second,
I mean, or
right?
building tennis shoes,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yeah.
But what those metrics are, that's not the goal. They're doing that to build a better car. Yet
Hmm.
when you're buying a car, you just want, a lot of people just want to get their family from point A to point B. So it's like actually how
Safely.
you
Yeah.
use and how you express and how you live with that car.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so many times, even in fitness, people are watching these things, whether they're bodybuilders or UFC, like MMA
Yeah.
fighters, and they're trying to train on the level of these like hyper
Yeah.
measured, like specific tools.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
these people
Yeah.
are
Right.
hyper specific tools. Like that tractor
Right.
over there, not a good car, right? It's
Right.
a hyper specific tool. It can be measured, it can be managed, but how do you put it into your life? Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's a very good point because it's putting ourselves back in context.
Hmm.
That's how we can actually be precise, right?
Yeah.
It's always contextual. So
Hmm.
that tractor is good for one set of circumstances, but not for another.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the knock on roosters is that they're always looking for the truth, but what
Right.
really is happening is they're looking for what's appropriate. They're
Right.
looking for they're looking for the evidence, like and it's not to say that their assessments can't change because they're as long as they're open to more info, more evidence, that would allow them to
Mm.
reassess the situation. But they're going to make an assessment. They're going to make a
Yeah.
judgment. And like there needs to be and in the eighth moon is a time where you can actually express meaning. This is the difference between rabbits and roosters, say. So rabbits imagine that they're perceiving the meaning that's beneath the surface.
Hmm.
And roosters, that doesn't mean anything. Roosters is
Yeah.
like the meaning's completely on the surface. And this meaning is quantifiable. I can make a judgment, I can be certain, I can make an argument, and I could have my mind changed, because if
Hmm.
you present me evidence, then we can have this conversation. So that doesn't mean that there's certainty forever, right? But it's true right now for this circumstance.
It's it's funny because when I was doing the thing where we were talking about all the marketing and stuff for business and all these things, yeah, it's like it's the difference between the accountant and the artist, right? And I was cracking up because they were saying like how to identify problems, and and my dumb artist self is like, your only problem is the fact you think you have problems. And I'm just
Well,
like, I'm
yeah,
throwing these dumb abstract ideas, but it's real. But it's like, since they have a construct and we have like
right.
and
They have a
since we have a
construct.
thing that needs, yeah,
Hmm.
now we can
Yeah,
have problems because we have these constructs. So like, I get it. Like, you don't have problems technically, but in your body, yes, cancer is a
right,
problem. But like in
right.
nature, it's not a problem. It just means you're going to be
No.
worm food. Right on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quicker. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's basically what goes into the equation. It's what goes into the equation, what comes out of the equation isn't as
Hmm.
relevant as the at you have equation. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
equation. And so the assumptions that you're working with and what comes out of that are basically the topic of the eighth moon, is that
Okay.
you're working with sort of a conceptual basis for what success is. Like
Mm,
if you're an acorn farmer and you got a nothing but mangoes, you have a problem, right? You
hmm.
needed acorns,
Hmm.
so you can quantify all those mangoes, but it doesn't really. You got to find somebody to buy them now,
Yeah.
So there's always everyone's under this kind of pressure of editing and sort of quantifying the meaning of our experience. And then
Right.
that's the invitation of this moon. And that's the reason why it's saying pull back and go inward and do this process, because you
Hmm.
need to, because by the time next moon comes around, that's, we're talking about the eighth moon, but the ninth moon in this calendar and other calendars, traditional calendars, is considered the end of the moon or end of the
Hmm.
year in some cases. So there's not really anything else you can do, like other
Hmm.
than commiserate with each other. But in the eighth moon, here's still a chance to sort of refine and do something with the resources that you've harvested. So in some cases, like what you harvested is inedible until you pickle it, right? So you have to
Hmm.
transform it into something else. This is like a really rich time for how we can take resources in and transform them into something
Hmm.
else. So it's a good time
Okay.
for study and learning and revisiting the things that moved us in the spring. Now to come back to
Okay.
that again.
Okay. Who's the buried and married? Who's made for this, other than roosters
Um,
and dogs?
yes. So the ones off the top of my head, like right away, would be the trine that the rooster is affiliated with. Not, roosters, yes. Like the
Hmm.
roosters, so this is a water rooster instead of a metal rooster moon. So in a water rooster case, it's there's a chance here that people will be more inclined to not be so precise. They'll use fuzzy
Hmm.
logic to kind of justify things. So it sort of changes the dynamics a little bit. But overall, I'd say your oxes do the best
Hmm.
because they're just so consistent in their behavior. And this is where they get to see the consistency rewarded. And
Okay.
this would be a real big movement for them in this moon, is that they get to see their consistency, which maybe hasn't been recognized for most of this year. To be fair, they feel more recognized in this particular moon. Snakes.
Hmm.
I think snakes, they understand rules, because the rooster moon is very much about rules. And they're very adept at navigating those rules. So when the rules are sort of made plain, that's when they're the
Mhm.
most comfortable because they know how to manipulate the situation.
Okay.
And roosters, of course, are the ones writing the rules. They'll be the ones criticizing everybody's behavior. So if you see somebody like with their finger in someone else's face, it's probably a rooster this moon
Mhm.
because they will feel like they have a lot to edit. You know, it's been a lot of things that's happened over the course of this year. So this is the year when all of those things are just sort of pressing upon them. And so in order to process all that material, they're uh, sort of compulsively trying to organize their environment. So it's a good time for them
Mhm.
to basically make their case.
Mhm.
In the case of roosters, strut a little bit. The ones who do the worst are the domestics in general. Dogs, that's an exception. I'm including them in domestics generally. Dogs definitely, these next two moons will be very good for them. Dogs in particular this moon because they actually relate to boundaries very well. So as
Mhm.
things become clarified then they feel more comfortable. Probably the most comfortable that they'll ever feel this year in a dragon year.
Mhm.
However, again, with it being kind of fuzzy, it might take a little bit of time for them to settle in. Next moon, they'll
Mhm.
feel better, but like it's really about how they sort of the boundaries that they retreat behind.
Mhm.
Rabbits, as we mentioned, they're going to feel like everybody's looking in the wrong place
Mhm.
because rabbits they don't see autumn, they see it as like much too harsh. They don't view autumn as intuitional, which is what they prefer, because they see doors closing rather than remaining open, and so that's very
Mhm.
suffocating for rabbits. Um, Rabbits they like to keep the pathways open, but a rooster's not interested in any of that. They want to put this away, they want to go down this road, they want to observe and make a decision. Right? So rabbits they'll feel a little bit more suffocated this moon. And pigs, just depends. I'd say kind of go either way. It just depends on how well that they have situated themselves, because they could be sort of chopped at the neck, so to speak. If they're too overextended, they may find that they just run out of resources and can't go any further.
Mhm.
So it would be a really good idea for pigs to pull back if they haven't already.
Mhm.
And then in terms of the other five dragons, dragons themselves don't have problems this moon. That like a snake, they can see how everything is laid out, and they can choose to participate or not. I would say for these next two moons, they should go and frequent in avenues that they are well established in, right? Things that are very clear to them. And if it's not clear, they should clarify it this moon so that they're more comfortable next moon.
Mhm.
Um,
Come to my
and
workshops.
Exactly. Yeah, get it out now. Get the message out
Okay.
now. Everybody sign up. You can't come late. You can't come late.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, and then who am I missing? Tigers and horses. So tigers might feel a little bit uh more relaxed coming out of the monkey moon, and I would say don't get relaxed because
Mhm.
rooster chi can be very argumentative, and the last thing that in belligerent, and the last thing that a tiger wants to do is get into an argument or a fight right now. They do not want any of that smoke, because it's gonna people are going to hold it over them. It's like
Mhm.
they'll never get away with it. It's going to feel like it's going to keep following them and just making
Mhm.
them more and more irritated. And
Mhm.
Yeah, so the horse, again, I think it's about conservation of energy is what the horse should embrace at this time. Hibernation is the model of the eighth moon, honestly. It's really like the gathering in of resources and making yourself comfortable. For both horses and goats, they should be doing this. They should be beautifying their environment. Same
Mm,
also with rabbits. They could weather out the rooster sort of storm if they have their like quiet little nook where they don't have to worry about everybody's complaints. So the same with goats will be sensitive to that too. Criticism doesn't really sit well with them. But the horse might feel like kind of sideswiped by criticism. So all of
mhm,
those need to start really peeling back and embracing the boundaries. And the home space is one of those places where they can feel safe. And then
mm,
monkey's the last one. Monkey, yeah, hopefully you didn't overextend yourself last moon. That's all I gotta say. Because
mm,
it's going to kind of start closing down on you, in terms of like the spaciousness you felt last moon is going to start shifting, and you'll the monkeys will feel it. They'll feel the tightness before most of us. They'll feel it.
mm,
They feel it coming already. Like, uh-oh, So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me none of monkeys have already headed for the trees, so to speak, because they're just
mm,
like, yeah, I shut this down like a week ago, because they can see it, they can see trouble coming. And the rooster again
mm,
is sort of like gonna grind away the pretense.
mm,
So they can't really pretend that they can keep pushing.
mm,
So everybody shouldn't justify their action. They shouldn't need to justify their actions. It should be inward focused, and try to avoid argument. If you're in an argument in a rooster moon, you've already lost, right?
mm,
Even though like justifying your position is part of rooster chi. Um, you want to play the long game, save and conserve. And meaning like if it takes a lot of justification, a lot of energy to keep something going, then it's
mhm,
probably a good time to break it down. Um,
mm,
because everybody kind of needs to make space for this, whatever it is that we are storing to like ferment and transform, right? This is not a good time to have like a ton of things on your to-do list. You want just a few things you can really drop into,
mm,
because that's actually going to give you the most juice. If you're just booked up, then it's not about you want to really dive deep on the things that you have on your agenda.
mm,
That's a true harvest. You want to like really connect and create this sort of web of being,
mm,
that reflects like who you are in this day, in this time, in this year, because that's really the harvest that you're going to sit with and be nourished by through the winter, and that gets you set up for next spring, right? And the things that you can be re-inspired to do. It all depends on what you take into those sort of dark meditative places, you know, like getting enough sleep so that when you wake up again, you're ready to move and you're clear and you know what to do. So all
mm,
that traces back to now, all that traces back to how we really embrace this sort of inward movement, and this transformation process of gathering inward.
mm.
Um,
Nice.
yeah.
So I like that. That's kind of what fall's like for me anyway. But
Yeah.
anything? What do you got going on? What are you preserving? What's the thing you're
Um,
preserving?
meditation practice, I think, is the highest thing, or the thing that I sit with the most,
Mm,
both on a formal and informal practice.
mm,
And that formal and informal practice, and really, being saturating myself with the view teachings about it. That's definitely what I'm taking into the winter. That's what I'm preserving. And I feel I think feel pretty strongly that doing that actually would make me a better writer, make me a better conveyor of the view, would
Mm,
actually make me a better providing readings and sessions to people, and just thinking about how I want to do that differently, or something that's like a little bit more in integrity with the view. So
nice.
that's mostly what I'm uh there's this idea when I was younger, you are what you do every day.
Mm,
And like really have taken that to heart quite a lot, in terms of what I'm
yeah.
taking into the winter. What about you?
We also
What's
want to
striking
think
for
of
you?
it like I mean, I've been talking to a lot of, I've been doing Zoom sessions all day, and that's kind of
Yeah,
where I've been getting busy with that. But it's all around the journaling work, even the physical stuff. And it's always like, okay, cool. So what do you do every day? Okay, now you want to
yeah,
ask why, and then you want to go internal. So it's kind of
yeah,
like, are you training? Again, if you talked about the negativity, right? Are
mhm.
you training martial arts because you're afraid of getting in a fight and then you want to do, or are you training this because it's building tools? Or it's like,
Yeah,
you want to know your why. And
yeah,
that why can always transform. Like sometimes, like I remember the first time, like I used to live in terror of physical violence.
yeah,
And I mean, in many ways I still do, but it's like now I study physical violence and all these
right,
other things, but from a place of like, oh, this is what I do with my friends. Like now the negativity
right,
is completely transformed. I
yeah,
still know it exists. I'm still very afraid of it, but
yep,
I don't live in fear of it. I just like, if I just know good enough to not partake and to build skills to where I can, it doesn't really come around
yeah.
like I
And
was available to it a long time ago.
yeah, and I think for me, like getting into the why of getting into being a martial arts practitioner was intensely angry.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah,
the time, just like
yeah.
really, really angry. And like that was the only way that I felt that that I could get that energy out,
Mhm.
like that I wouldn't
Yeah.
just burn up from the inside
Mhm.
and do something
Mhm.
extraordinarily dangerous and violent,
Yeah.
So that was very much in the early years. And then as time has gone by, it's really kind of amazing, doing partner work with people and sparring and all of those sorts of confrontational, and seeing like, their anger and feeling fear, and then having this
Mhm.
kind of dialogue on those like basic elemental levels, and understanding like how small, even
Mhm.
that at the height of its fury, how small anger
Yeah.
really was,
Yeah.
it was very small,
Mhm.
in reality, but it just took up a lot of space that felt like in your consciousness at the time. And then all
Mhm.
this other just beauty, comes out
Mhm.
around the practice and the appreciation of like what the human body can do, and like how
Mhm.
you can feel after feeling a sense of mastery. But yeah, like
Yeah.
I think anger for me was like a reclamation of my own space in my own embodiment, because the anger came out of like not feeling in control and not feeling, having your bodily spaces respected and things like that. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, but then all the beauty comes out, but you got to start somewhere, right? And I think that that's a huge part of what's available in the eighth moon is this. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't give Rooster enough credit for their vulnerability, but or any credit, that's usually assigned to the rabbit. But like they're intensely vulnerable as a figure. If you just look at a chicken or a rooster or a bird, any kind of bird, they don't have any strong muscles to protect them. It's all about their precision. It's all about their capacity for observance
Mhm.
and paying attention to the
Mhm.
details. And that comes from like a deep like sense of vulnerability, that it could
Mhm.
go either way. We are in autumn, so it's like this is the time when things don't grow, and they get killed. We harvest
Yeah.
things. So this is the moment before death. So that is uniquely vulnerable time of the year when you like still feel so abundant and it's kind of even warm still, but things are about to be chopped down, and like that's it's a very interesting crux that we're at that the eighth moon provides.
Yeah, we're entering into the ant and grasshopper fable, right? That's what it is.
Correct.
It's like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I've used that one a couple times to describe this time. It's like, yeah,
mhm,
unless you do what you need to do. This is something we're
yeah.
so insulated on when it comes to industrial society because I can still get grapes in November for some reason.
Oh,
You
dude,
know?
when I moved to California, I think you might be the only person that even knew that fable. Because like people would just be like
Oh yeah.
wondering why they can't make rent, but they had to go snowboarding and then they went to Burning Man and then they had to go to Tulum and then
Right,
then they
exactly.
come back and they're like, I only took 28 days off this month. I don't know why I can't make rent, and you're just like,
Mm.
and why did I lose my job? And I'm like, man, y'all need to watch Ant and the Grasshopper and just know,
Yep,
like,
Aesop's
do
fables.
your work and then get your things ready, and then you can celebrate
Then
through
you
those
can
times.
celebrate. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And that
yeah.
celebration is what the ninth and the tenth moon are all about,
Mm, mm,
is how we gather together and celebrate and recommit
mm.
to one another.
Yeah,
But like, yeah, in the eighth moon, it's like, yeah, no, you gotta, this is where the work actually really
yeah.
begins.
You actually still have the energy to get the work done. I mean,
Correct.
that's important. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And then that backs up into the seventh moon. It's like you don't keep
mhm,
expanding in the seventh moon because you're going to need that
yeah,
energy to do the
yeah,
work of the eighth moon.
yeah.
So
I'm still doing. I do my autumn qigong every year. I mean, I always have it available for people if you guys join the site. But I would also say like let's do yeah, tell yeah, people get some private sessions and I'll take you right through. I mean, 3 sessions you can get like full like pack the yang into the body to get you
mm,
through winter. I mean, it's so
mm,
important. Get that spine flexing, get the whole body like
spine
ready and
flexing.
prepped for winter. I mean, I do
Mhm.
it. I'll put the course up soon. I'm reshooting it. I reshoot it pretty much every year because I do it every year. And so I
Mm.
always kind of reshoot it because it's fun, and I love sharing that with people. But I might
Critical.
even do
Yeah, critical.
a Zoom workshop this time. That you know what? That's a good idea. Thank you.
It's a good
But
idea.
I'm running out of batteries.
Seems like we're good.
Anything else you want to add?
Brush bathing. Brush
Oh,
bathing. Yeah, brush bathing.
yeah.
Do some brush bathing.
I would um I would say, yeah, think about what you
It's
want to
been
preserve,
amazing.
what you can preserve, what you have an abundance of, and then maybe what you don't, and see how you can like shift and preserve
Yeah,
internally and externally, right? Like
right.
that's important. Hmm.
There's always a connection between those two things, and
Hmm.
that's very, that's the Taoist view of the world. It's not to reject the world, but to see the connection between our exterior condition and our interior condition,
Hmm.
because there
Hmm.
is one, So
Yeah.
this is the moon where we can really relate in that way
Huh.
and like and make conclusions, and it doesn't have to be permanent, but like
Yeah.
making a conclusion then allows you to be flexible with what you could do with that conclusion. But
Hmm.
if you're just kind of like, oh, I don't know, then you won't harvest,
Yeah.
and you need to
Nice.
harvest. Yeah,
Go on
appreciate
the
you, brother.
site, sign up, look at all of my new videos and stuff. It's been super cool. And then
I'll
I
check it out.
am also personal clients. I'm open to you guys,
Mm.
and also get on the mailing list. So just sign up for anything. You'll be in the mailing list, and so you can know when I'm coming back to your town. It's been busy. New businesses, new workshops, new everything, and I'm going international this year.
Amazing.
So word. Thank you very
Wow.
much. I'll call you in a minute, Scott, and get a reading from this guy. He's super rad. Yeah, John. This is John Cougar out. All right, man. I'll
All
call you in
right,
a
bye.
second. Take care. Bye.